Happy coding.
Hey there, this is Kevin here from happycoding.io, and welcome to the next video in our series of web development. And we've been learning about GitHub in the last couple of videos. And in this one, we are going to learn about a feature called GitHub Pages, which lets you use GitHub to deploy websites. So at this point in your web development journey, you've likely been using something like Glitch to use as like an online editor, and you write code in the online editor, and then it's right there, it's deployed pretty much right away. And that is great for, I think, like kind of prototype projects or things that you're doing to just kind of experiment with. But if you want something that's a little more permanent, a little more, I don't know, like professional, you might want to use something that's a little more, I don't know, geared towards that kind of thing. So GitHub Pages is more like that. So I'll talk more about that as we go. So far we've learned a little bit about GitHub, and specifically we learned about the GitHub profile README feature, where you can add content, and it can be like Markdown and HTML to a specific file, and then that shows up in your GitHub profile, and that's great. But chances are that what you actually want to do is create like a website, right? You don't want to make a GitHub profile. Your actual goal is to make a web page. So let's do that. So we are going to use a feature called GitHub Pages. And to do that, we are going to first create a repo. So let me go back to my home page. And I'm going to go here to my new repo button here. So I'm going to click that. And there's actually like a couple of different, I don't know, ways to think about GitHub Pages, or different URLs that your GitHub Pages site can be deployed to. And what it comes down to is your repository name. So what I'm going to choose for now is my username, Kevin Workman, .github.io. So it looks like this, your username .github.io. And if you choose this as your repository name, this is kind of similar to when you chose just your username. It kind of was that magical thing where it hooked up to your GitHub profile README. If you choose this kind of magic name, then your final sort of result will be deployed to this URL, to GitHub, kevinworkman.github.io, whatever your username is. Alternatively, you could choose pretty much any name here. So if you wanted, like, I don't know, my web page, that's probably taken. My web page is weirdly enough available. What will happen is this will deploy to my username.github.io/my webpage, and then you can have files underneath that. But for now, I'm just going to use kevinworkman.github.io. So I recommend doing the same thing, whatever your username is, .github.io. Okay, and then let's see, what else do we need? Public is fine. I am going to check this add a README file. You can always add it later, but this sort of, I don't know, saves you a step later, so why not? I'm not going to do any of the other things. You can if you want to, but for now, I think just create the repository is fine. You can always come back and redo all of this. So this has created a repository, and it has created it at kevinworkman.github.io. That's just the name of the repo so far. The next thing I want to do is sort of show you the settings page for my repo. I think for our case, we won't actually have to change anything, but in case you went the other way and you chose a non-magic name for your repo, the way to enable GitHub Pages is, they keep moving this around. Where is it now? Down here, maybe. Oh boy. Yell if you see it. Oh, it's over here now. It's over on the left nav. Right. So click here, click to Pages. And then here, GitHub Pages is designed to host, blah, 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 blah. And here it says your site is live at blah, blah, blah. If you didn't have that here, then you could enable it in this this section of the settings page. But because we use that magic name, we don't actually have to change anything. Okay, so let me go back to my repo here, and so far I just have a mostly empty repository. It contains a readme.md file, which only contains like this line of text, the name of the repo itself. But the magic is that whatever is in this repo is deployed to this URL. So I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to paste that in, and I think that this won't actually work yet. Yeah, okay. It just shows this, which is like the contents of the README. So if I go to /readme.md, then, there's the contents of the README. And this isn't really, interesting yet because, it's just a README file. It's not actually any HTML or any real content, but it's there, right? I could, in theory, send this URL to someone and it would work for them. But where the magic really happens is if I start adding HTML to it. So let me go up here. Let me, I'll add one file, maybe two, just through the flow, the editor, the web editor flow. But then I want to switch to GitHub Desktop to sort of show what I would actually do. So I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it index.html. So index.html. And if you've never thought about like why it's named that, I'll show you that in a second. But I have my index.html and I'm going to add some content. So for now, I'm just going to write like an h1 hello world and then a p tag, welcome to my GitHub pages site. And then I'm going to save this. I'm going to hit commit up here in the upper right. And sure, just commit directly. And that is kind of underwhelming because we haven't actually looked at it yet, but now it's in my repo. I have my index.html page in my repo. So I can now go to my other tab here, and instead of kevinworkman.github.io/readme.md, I'm going to type index.html. And I'm going to wait for it to deploy because it takes a minute after you upload a file for the change to be live, which is kind of annoying, but that's why we like to edit locally. So I'll show that in a second anyway. I'm just going to hit refresh a bunch of times and hope for the best. And finally, there it is. My webpage is deployed to kevinworkman.github.io/index.html. And the reason we call it index.html is because if I leave off the index.html, so if I just have kevinworkman.github.io and I refresh, then it works, right? And I don't have to have the index.html. That's just a convention that web browsers follow or web servers follow, where if you don't specify a file, it defaults to index.html. So you can have a nicer URL without needing to worry about like what's the file actually called. So when I just go to kevinworkman.github.io, I'm actually viewing my index.html file. Okay. So from here, I could iterate on that. I could add another web page. I could add, links. I could add CSS and JavaScript exactly like you were doing in Glitch. So let me think about how I want to do that. Sure, maybe I'll add like an about page. So I'll add a file. I'll create a new file. This will be like about.html. And in my file contents here, I'll say like about me, and then I'll have a little maybe p tag like my name is Kevin and I am making a web page. You can imagine that there's more content here, but the idea is that I am sort of modifying it iteratively. So I'm going to commit that change. Sure. And I could then go to like /about.html. I think what I'll actually do is I'll edit my index.html, and you can start to see that it's a little annoying to switch back and forth between files like this. And then like wait for GitHub to deploy, and it's kind of annoying. So that's why we do things locally. So let me just add quickly a link. So I'll say like, learn more href equals about.html. So I'm linking to the page that I just created about me. /a and sure. And then I'll go save, commit, and commit. And so now I should have two web pages, and my index.html should link to my about.html. And it's going to take a second, so I'm going to refresh, probably 10 times or so. Usually takes like a minute. And finally, there it is. So I have hello world, welcome to my GitHub Pages site, and then learn more about me. And if I got everything right, if I click this, now that takes me to my other web page, and it's about me. Hi, my name is Kevin, and I'm making a web page. Okay, so I could keep going like that. I could add, another file. I could link to it. I could start adding CSS, but hopefully by now you are annoyed enough with the flow that we are working with to kind of want something else. So let me go back to my repo, because this is where something called, GitHub Desktop, we learned about that. That's where GitHub Desktop comes into play. So I am going to download this repo locally to my own computer so that I can mess with the files, like using whatever text editor I want. And then I'm going to upload those changes sort of when I'm done. So I'm going to click here, this code button, and I'm going to click open in GitHub Desktop. And then I'm going to clone it. So clone. That is downloading the files to my own computer. And that looks done. And then I have this button, show in Explorer. And what I have here is the files that are in my repo, sort of in my local computer, like all my local computer, all my local file system here. So from here, I can edit these files. I can add new files and sort of walk through that flow. So let's do that. I'm trying to think about exactly how I want to do this. So I have these like about and, oh, that's annoying. Sure. About and index. And let's say I want to, I don't know, I want to add another page and maybe I want to add like some CSS. So I'm going to open up my, one of them, and I'm going to open that up with a text editor. You can use any text editor you want. I'm going to use Atom, but you can use, truly anything. And where'd that go? That went over on my other thing. And okay, let's bring that. Oh boy, that was the wrong thing to grab. Oh, it's right there. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to keep that in. So I have Atom open on my computer here, and it's open to my index.html page. I can also like add a folder. So sure, let's do that. Just so I can sort of have all of my files over here on the left and then my content on the right. This is really similar to how Glitch sets up their editor, but now this is like, I have full control. And you can start to see that because this is an HTML file, Atom is like highlighting it so that it's a little easier to read as HTML. So what did I want to do? I wanted to like make changes to this and see where it goes. So let's say I wanted to do something like, I don't know, maybe I'll surround this whole thing with a div class equals container and /div, and then have some white space. Sure. And so I could, if I wanted to test this change, I could go back to GitHub Desktop and upload my change, but that's going to be pretty annoying. So you can see like, here's the changes I made. I could push that to my repo and then refresh in GitHub. But that's going to be pretty annoying because now every time you make a change, you have to upload it. So instead, I'm just going to test it locally too. So I'm going to close GitHub and I'm going to go back to my file. Where'd that go? Here, and I'm going to right click again and I'm going to go open with, in this case, I'm going to open up with my browser. I'm using Firefox, whatever browser you use, you can open it with your browser. And now I have the file open locally in my browser, just like I can any other web page. And if you notice, it's really small. I need a way to zoom in on my like regular desktop, but, the URL is a file URL, which is like, it's just opening a file that's local on your computer. So what I tend to do is I usually have two monitors, but since I'm recording, what I'll do is I'll move my browser sort of to the right side of my screen. And then I'll move my editor to the left side of my screen. And then when I want to make a change, I will make a change over here in my editor, and then I'll refresh and I'll see the change over here. So let's just test that out. So like add a p tag, like testing 1, 2, 3. Close out my p tag. So I'm going to save that, Control S, and I'm going to refresh over here. And sure enough, there is my testing 1, 2, 3. And this iteration is pretty snappy. It's pretty fast. I don't have to wait to upload to GitHub, and I can like test my local changes and make sure they work before I actually upload them. So then from here, it's back to regular old web development, just like you've been doing this whole time. So I am going to try to work through a little example. So I'm going to maybe add some CSS and then kind of make this look like more and more like a, I don't know, a real web page, and then upload that. So that's what I'm going to do. So I know there's a few things I want to do. I want to make my pages look a little nicer. I want to add a page, maybe add images, that kind of thing. So let's see, what order do I want to do that? Maybe I'll create my CSS file first. So I'm going to go to new file over here, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, style.css. I never remember if it should be S or not, but it doesn't actually matter as long as I use the same name in my HTML. So I've got my CSS file, and now I'm going to go get the line of code that I always forget. So I'm going to steal it from myself, CSS, and then I want the external style sheet line. This line, I never remember it. So I'm going to go put this in my index.html file, and I could also do like the head section and whatnot, but yeah, you know what? I might as well. I'm going to make it as real as I can. So HTML, have a closing /HTML down at the bottom, and then a head section. Technically, you don't really need these, but you know, I'm going to add it anyway. So head, and then body, and /body. I actually don't know off the top of my head if Atom has a like code formatter. I don't actually know, but I usually just do it myself. So I've got HTML and head and body. I want my doc type there. That line is, so sure. Now this is looking a little bit more like, I don't know, real HTML. I've got my CSS file loaded, and I've got my body and my head. All right, so I'm going to save that. Nothing should really change yet. So I'm going to refresh, and sure enough, nothing really changes. But now I can start to style it. So I've got this div with a class. So let me go to style.css. And let me actually make sure, yeah, styles, I have to make sure that lines up, style.css. And I'm going to say dot container. And what do I want here? I want like a width maybe, and I can say, I don't know, 600 pixels, and then margin of auto to sort of center it. And maybe I'll give it a border as well. So border, thin, solid, black. And then let's refresh. And yeah, okay, maybe it's looking different at least. That means that my CSS is hooked up. I'll also maybe add some padding. Pick your number, 25, sure. So now I have a sort of container section where my content can go. And if I resize my window, you know, it stays kind of small, and I kind of like that. So then what do I want to do next? I want to maybe add like a nav bar. So let's do that. And I'm kind of debating, like, do I want the nav bar inside my container, outside my container? And I think I'll go inside. So I don't actually remember off the top of my head exactly what to use, but I'm just going to make this a div, and I'll say class equals nav. And then maybe I'll have a couple of links in there. So div, and then I'll have some links. So I'll say ahref equals index.html. That will be home. Oops. And then another one, ahref equals index.h, or not index, sorry, about, I think was my other one. Yeah, about.html and about. And then one more, maybe I'll say like href equals, I don't know, images.html. I haven't actually created this file yet, but maybe you can imagine that I would have like a page of pictures I took or whatever. So let's save that and then refresh. And okay, I've got home, about, images. It's not styled yet. It's just a couple of links, but now I can go back to my CSS and style this nav. So styles, I'll say .nav, and I want to give this a display of flex first, and then I'll say justify content, space around. Sure, I'm kind of just trying something random just to get it working. And let's refresh, and that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Oh, because I spelled flex wrong. Fex, that's not a thing. Uh, display flex, cool, refresh. And okay, that's getting a little better. Maybe I'll increase the size, like font size, 24 pixels, make it quite a bit bigger. And yeah, maybe. While I'm at it, I might add like an HR tag and refresh. And you can see like the process that I'm doing is editing the content over on the left and then refreshing to see the change on the right. And I'm actually kind of happy with this. Just as an example, you can see the flow, and I could keep going, but like I could get lost in that too. So instead of doing that for an hour while you're like, okay, bro, I get it. I think I'll move on to some other things you can do. So I've edited my index.html page, and I could actually push that to GitHub because I'm pretty happy with what the index.html page looks like. So sure, why not? I'll go open up my GitHub desktop, and you can see that now I have two files over here. It's index.html and style.css. These are the two files that I have edited locally, and that's what I expect. So I'm going to push these down here. I need to give it a summary because I've edited multiple files. The automatic thing won't kick in. So I'll just say like added CSS. It doesn't actually matter. You can put unicorn bear Zimbabwe down there if you really wanted to. But usually folks leave just like a short message so that they can remember what they did. So I want to commit that to my repo, and I'm going to push it. Okay, so if I go back to GitHub, which is what I probably should have done before I did all of that, if I'm here, if I refresh right now, nothing has changed yet because the changes I made were just on my own computer. They were local until I just pushed it. So that's kind of the perk of editing locally, because only you can see your changes until you push them. Then it takes, a few minutes to actually go live, but you can work with it sort of locally, get it into a state that you like, and then push it so that then other people see it, so that, everyone doesn't see like your random stuff that you're trying. Like when you go start to try to do something, everything's broken, like, oh my God. The general public doesn't need to see all of that. So you edit locally and then you push to your live site. But now it's working. If I, here it is. It's on my live site, kevinworkman.github.io. And here is my homepage with, my little border and my CSS and stuff. And now if I click about, now this is just the default because I haven't actually touched that yet. So I'm going to go back to my editor. So I'm going to pop this down into a smaller window and then go back to my local version of it. So I'm looking at that URL, and I'm going to do something pretty similar on my about page. So I'm going to probably honestly just steal a lot of this code from myself. So I'm going to steal this, and then I am going to indent, sure. Well, that's one extra. And then indent, okay. And then I need my closing tags, and sure, okay. So I'm going to refresh this, or I'm going to save that first, and I'm going to go to my about page. And now you see that it's kind of, it's no longer like separate. So if I go back to the live version, home to about, the about page is kind of like messy and incomplete because it doesn't have that styling and whatnot. But now locally I have home and I have about, and it's more cohesive. It kind of flows the way that you might expect. And I could keep going. I could keep adding tags to my about page. I could add more styling. I don't love that these are purple. I could change the links on the link styling, but the idea is the same. It's editing CSS and editing HTML exactly like you've already been doing. The only difference is that you're doing it locally instead of in an editor like Glitch or even GitHub. So the last thing I want to do is create like an images page. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to make or actually maybe I'll copy my homepage. So I'm going to copy and then paste. So now I have like this weirdly named index 0. You can't really see it because this is teeny tiny and I still don't know how to make that bigger. But it's by default, this particular editor named it index0.html, which is not what I want. So I'm going to rename it to, I don't know, images.html. And okay, so images.html is currently a copy of my index.html file. I just did that so that I didn't have to copy over a bunch of the content, but this gives me like the boilerplate there that I need to start with. So I'm going to say this is like images, and now I need some images, and I could do exactly what I was doing before in Glitch, where I like find the URL of an image. In this case, because I don't have like an online editor, I can't like upload an image anywhere. Well, I could use some kind of image host, but I don't need to because I am working with my files locally. So where'd my directory go? That's not right. This is right. I have that open in a couple windows, don't I? I do. This is the one I want. Yeah, okay. So this is just the directory that we're working out of locally. So I have my index page, I have my about page, and now I have my images page. And what I want to do is copy some images into this directory. So I have downloaded a couple onto my desktop. So I'm just going to copy those over now. Let me get them 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to copy them over. And now I have these 1, 2, 3, 4 images sort of just hanging out in my directory here. I haven't actually uploaded them to GitHub or anything yet. They're just in my directory here. So I can click on them and look at them and stuff, but you know, they're just images. These are pictures I took from around the town that I live in, and ugh, no, I don't want you. So I'm thinking like maybe I'll make like a page about some places I have visited in my town that I live in. But I have these 4 images. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to maybe create a div, and I'll close it out as well. So I've got this div here, and let me just kind of make some white space for myself. And in here, I want my 4 images, and I want to use something like, I don't know, something like Flexbox or Grid maybe to show like, I don't know, 4 of the images in columns or something. So in a grid. So how do I want to do that? I want to go to the internet and ask it, how do I do this again? So maybe I'll just go to like, I don't know, CSS grid. Sure, CSS grid. And W3 schools, and yeah, lots of complicated things. And grid container. Sure, maybe this is what I want. Let's try this out. But the process is the same as we've been using this entire time, where I'm looking it up on W3 schools or on MDN or whatever, and then I am trying something out. So grid looks like template columns, auto, and I should go and like really look this up, but I'm probably just not gonna. I'm going to just steal some code, because that's what everyone does. So let me bring that back into my editor and here. Okay, so now I'm on images, and right now it doesn't actually contain anything other than this images tab here. So I've got this, and I want to say div class equals, I don't know, grid maybe. And then I'll edit my style.css file to have .grid. And okay, display, grid, template columns, auto. I think I only want 2. So I'm going to have auto, and honestly kind of hope for the best. We're going to see what happens. And then back in my images, then I'm going to have 4 of my images. So image source equals, and I don't actually remember the names. Oh, they're right here. So I'm going to say bikes, bikes.jpg. And I want 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, fix my formatting. And what do I call it? Bikes, bridge, free. That's a trail here. And then Springfield. That's the town next door. All right, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to cross my fingers and I'm going to hope for the best. And no, okay, that didn't really work because why? Because my images are huge. Right, 1, 2. Actually, it did work. Oh, I'm actually very amazed by this. I actually do have a grid of 4 images. It's just that my images are freaking huge. So there, yeah, it's actually there. 4 images. It's just that my images are way too big. So all right, cool. Let me style my image. That I know how to do. I am pleasantly surprised by that. So what I'll do is I'll go to my CSS and I'll say like dot grid image maybe, and I'll give it like a width of 50%, maybe like 45%. So there's a little white space, maybe. Then refresh, and not quite, but better, an improvement. I'm actually not sure why it's only like that's not 50%. That's like 25%. What if I do 75%? Now I'm just kind of messing with numbers, which you can do, but yeah, sure. With what is 100? 100 get me? Sure. Okay. I don't exactly know why it's working that way. I could go look it up, but the idea is really, really similar to what we've been doing before, where I'm just trying stuff out. I'm trying stuff out, seeing if it works, and iterating. So sure, let's go with 100 because I think that's probably the better version. And yeah, so I could keep going. I could add, maybe captions or something, or I could change the background color, but the idea is the same. I am working with my files locally in my local editor, and then I am refreshing over here to see the change. Did I like that? Did I not like it? Oh, let's go back to what it was before. Oh, let's try this new thing. And I am getting it to be this like cohesive whole, and then I'm going to upload it. So let's see, I'm going to delete this testing 1, 2, 3 because that's kind of annoying me. But the again, like the process hasn't really changed. The only thing that has changed since we were in Glitch is instead of like seeing your change in Glitch, you are seeing your change in your local browser here. So I've got home, I've got about, and now I've got images. All right. So again, I could keep iterating, I could keep going, but you have seen the process now a few times. So I'm going to kind of force myself to stop, even though I'm like, ooh, let's play with those images a little more. So sure, let me go back to GitHub. And I see all of the changes. So I edited about, I added a few files, and I edited my CSS and images in there. Yeah, images is here. So I'll say like added images as my commit message down there, and I'll commit. And then I'll push my origin. This is very important to like remember to do all of that. Otherwise you won't be able to see your changes in the live site. So I'll bring that back up. I'll go back to my live site. I'll refresh a couple times, and I'm kind of just waiting for this testing 1, 2, 3 to go away. But it takes a minute, which is why we are editing locally, because it's kind of annoying to wait for this step, and so that other people don't see like every single tiny step that we do. But refreshing. There we go. And now I can click home, I can click about, and I can click images. And ooh, why not? Why didn't that work? Let me do, I'm going to do Control F5 to, or maybe I'll right click my button here. And no, I won't. I'm going to do Control F5 to clear out my cache. Yeah, sometimes if like there's a CSS file or sometimes a JavaScript file, sometimes your browser caches that, and you need to do like a cache clearing refresh. And on my browser, that's Control F5. I'll maybe link to that in the show notes. But here it is. Here is my web page, and I'm not saying it's like the best web page ever because I've only been doing it for 15 minutes here. But you can probably imagine that the pattern for deploying a web page to GitHub Pages looks a lot like what I was just doing. There's just more of it. So from here, you could imagine, maybe like I said, I want to change the background image. I want to add more text, obviously. I want to maybe expand the images so that they have, thumbnails and like captions and stuff. Maybe link to more interesting places, but I could do all of that. And in fact, maybe this is weird, shameless self-promotion, but like the actual example I have is my real homepage, kevinworkman.com. I haven't updated this in a while, but this is my homepage. This is like where I have all of the information about me. I do need to update it because it's pretty old, but this is, if people Google me, this is one of the things that they see. And I've done quite a bit like extra compared to what we just did in this video. So like that background is like an animated p5.js sketch, for example, but all of this is on GitHub pages, exactly like the flow that we just did. I just happen to have it, I've spent a little bit more time on it. But you could do the same thing now, now that you know the flow of sort of creating a repo, copying that to your own desktop, and then modifying those files locally, testing those changes locally, and then finally pushing them to your repo to see the deployed version. That is GitHub Pages. So from here, you can create your own like sort of professional web pages that have like a more, permanent feel to them. There's nothing wrong with Glitch really, but if someone has something like a GitHub Pages URL on their resume, like that's usually a pretty professional looking thing. So it's worth just putting one together, even if it just links to other Glitch projects, for example. All right, so I'm going to stop that there. In the next video, we're going to actually like kind of work through a project and build a portfolio together. But for now, thanks for watching, and as always, happy coding.